So double negatives, like I said, thankfully it's not something I saw in a lot of your writing, but it is something that people do, especially when they talk. Double negatives are when you have two words with either negative meanings or two words that are negative in the same sentence. Okay? A lot of times when people put two negative words in the same sentence, they really only need one. So here's an example here. Herbert never has no time to relax no more. And they actually went ahead and they bolded all the negative words. Never, no, and no again. Oh, sorry. There we go. So double negatives are when you have those words, so you have negative words, and you put them, no, Christopher, and you put them into the same sentence. And again, usually if they're in the same sentence, you really only need one of those negative words. Okay? Usually with a double negative, there's a couple of ways you can fix it, but what you want to make sure you do is you should only end up with one negative word. So take a look at this. When they fix this sentence, Herbert never has no time to relax no more. They fixed it up and they have Herbert never, so they have one negative, has any time to relax any more. So they changed those other negatives, no, into the word any to get rid of the other negative. Or, like I said, because it's double negative, it means there's more than one. You could fix it in more than one way. They could change it to Herbert has no time. So now they have their negative here, no, to relax any more. So they got rid of never completely. They just deleted it. And then they replaced any, or sorry, they left the no and replaced the second no with any. So fixing a double negative, basically the way to do it is just to take one of your negative words and turn it into a positive word. That's the simplest way to fix a double negative. Sometimes we don't realize we're using negative words because they're contractions. So they tell us the contraction N apostrophe T is a shortened way of saying not. Do not use the contraction N apostrophe T with another negative word. This is the one that people normally will use, especially when they're talking. So an example would be, there isn't no tread on those tires. And people think, oh, I'm only using one negative word. No. But they forget that the word isn't is negative because it has this contraction at the end. That means not. So isn't is a negative word and no is a negative word. The way to fix it is, like I said, get rid of one of the negative words, change it into a positive word. So you could fix it by saying, there isn't any tread on those tires. So we kept isn't, we changed no to any. Now the other way you could fix it is, instead of getting rid of no, you just get rid of that contraction. We could say, there is no tread on those tires. Again, there's not exactly just one way to fix a double negative because you have two negative words to work with. If you fix either one, you're fine. You only need the one negative word. The reason why we don't like double negatives, or we don't use double negatives, is because it's like a light switch. If you walk into a room and you flip the light switch twice, what ends up happening? Jadine? The light turns on and off, and then you're still in a dark room, right? So that's what a double negative is like. It's like flipping a switch twice. Nothing really changed. If you walked into a dark room and you flip the light switch twice, you're still in a dark room. If you want to change that room, you'll have to flip the light switch one time. The same is true of a sentence. When you use a negative, it's like flipping that switch. A double negative is like flipping the switch twice, on and off. It doesn't really change what you're saying. It stays the same. Another example they have for us here. Other negative words that a writer should not pair up with additional negative words include no, not, nothing, barely, scarcely, and hardly. So again, sometimes people use double negatives because they don't really realize they're using a double negative. So they think, oh, well, I didn't use no 2 times or not 2 times in my sentence. But there are other words that are negative words, like nothing, or barely, or scarcely, or hardly. So they give us another example of someone using double negatives. They scarcely had no tickets left for the concert. So we have scarcely and no that are both negative words. One way we could fix that is by changing no to positive. They scarcely had any tickets left for the concert. Or we could change scarcely into a positive word. Instead of scarcely, we could say we could say they had no tickets left for the concert. Or we could say they almost had no tickets left for the concert. Either way would work as well. Okay, so we have some examples here. We're going to do a couple together, and then the other ones you're going to fix on your own. We're going to start with number 1. I couldn't barely hear my baby brother crying for his bottle. We've got a double negative in there. Who can tell me, what do you think the double negative is? What are the 2 negative words in that sentence? I couldn't barely hear my baby brother crying for his bottle. What are my 2 negatives there? Violet, what do you think the 2 negatives are?
Couldn't and barely.
Couldn't and barely. Okay, so Violet, I want to fix it, right? Which means I have to fix one of those negative words. Which one do you think would be the better word to fix? Okay, so if we want to fix barely, then the easiest way to fix it would be to just get rid of it. We could change the sentence to say, I couldn't hear my baby brother crying for his bottle. Yes, Shadeen.
I could have another suggestion.
Okay, what's your suggestion?
I'm having here.
You're right. Remember, these are double negatives, so you can fix them a different way. The other way we could have fixed that sentence is, instead of saying couldn't, I could just get rid of the N apostrophe T and just say, I could barely hear my baby brother crying for the bottle. Either one would work. That's the good thing about double negatives, is when you find them, you don't just have to fix it one way. There's more than one way to say it. What about the second sentence? Giorgio didn't have no papers on his desk during the exam. Giorgio didn't have no papers on his desk during the exam. What are my 2 negatives in that sentence? Giorgio didn't have no papers on his desk during the exam. What are the two negative words in that sentence? Okay, Christopher, what's one of them? What's one of my negative words in that sentence? Okay, didn't. Didn't is a negative because again it has that N apostrophe T. That means not. So Giorgio did not have no papers on his desk during the exam. We found one of the words, but what's the other negative word? We have didn't and what? Kylie? No, no is the other negative word. So didn't and no. Kylie, if you were going to fix this one, which one would you fix or get rid of? Would you want to fix didn't or no? Okay, so how could we fix it, Kylie? Giorgio didn't have what? What could we put instead of no? But if I did, I would just say Giorgio didn't have papers on his desk during the exam. I would want to replace it with another word. Jada, do you think you have a word that I could replace it with? Okay, what word would you replace it with, Jada? Any. Giorgio didn't have any papers on his desk during the exam. That would be a good way. And we see that one here in our examples. When they were replacing the word no, they're replacing it with the word any. So that's one way to fix a double negative. If you want to fix a double negative by getting rid of the word no, replace the word no with any. So Giorgio didn't have any papers on his desk during the exam. Now, like we said for sentence one, that's not the only way to fix it. The other way is I could fix didn't. If I fix didn't, I could just say Giorgio did have no papers on his desk during the exam. In this case, I'd probably stick with fixing no because I think it sounds better. But you could also write it so that you keep didn't and get rid of no. Or sorry, that you could get rid of didn't and have no. Jadine.
I'm ready for this.
Oh, those ones you're going to be doing on your own.
And I also have.
Okay. What's your suggestion for number 2?
Yeah. No, he's dead.
Okay. So instead of didn't, I could put had. Instead of didn't have, I could just say Giorgio had no papers on his desk during the exam. That would absolutely fix my sentence as well. Okay. So number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 7. I want you to look at. I want you to find the double negative words. And I want you to write the sentence fixed. I want you to get rid of one of those negative words so that we don't have double negatives in that sentence anymore. When you finish fixing those sentences all the way up to number 7, you can go ahead and turn your work in.